Sunny ways, my friends. Sunny ways.
You sneaky. You're running as an outsider.
I am an outsider.
We have recently switched to drinking water bottles out of water out of when we have water bottles out of plastic. Away from plastic towards paper, like drink box water bottles. So that.
Well, the frickin' God!
You're ready to fight, aren't you? I can feel
I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister.
Is this true?
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell.
Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right, elbows up.
Elbows up.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
So the answer to that is to stop being stupid.
My great pleasure to introduce my husband, the Prime Minister who will make Canada strong. And Canada full!
I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Thank you. It will be an honor to continue to fight for you and to be a champion of your cause as we go forward.
Let's fucking go.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Welcome to Unhinged Fringe. If there was ever a night to hit the thumbs up, to share out on your socials that we're live, tonight is the night. What a day it's been with YouTube. 3 videos pulled off the air today, folks, all because of YouTube censorship. The problem with YouTube is whenever you do videos, they only alert your notifier, or like your people who turn on their notification bells 3 times daily. So when they pull those 3 videos, people don't know that we're live. So make sure to hit that thumbs up tonight, folks. Let's get it out there. Share this out. We got to get our audience back in. People got to know that we're live. We're doing it live. I hope you guys have had a great day. I'm going to bring in Matt. We got a good show for you guys tonight. We got a lot to talk about the state of the world, kind of how we got here, what's transpired over the last week, and how we move forward maybe as a country, how we're supposed to deal with everything that's going on. It's going to be a great show. I hope you guys are ready for this. Let's bring Matt in. How you doing, Matt? Welcome back.
I'm good. I mean, as good as one can be, given the state of the planet, but I'm ready to talk about it.
Absolutely. We're going to get into it tonight. Folks, if you see a little delay on Matt's end, again, he's out in the country on Starlink. So again, we're working on that. We're going to fix that eventually. But for now, your YouTube isn't off. It's the delay for Matt. So be patient there, folks. We got to talk about YouTube. YouTube is a fickle beast. I've been talking a lot about Charlie Kirk because I think it's important to get that stuff out. I keep seeing "Don't be a normie" and it's being spammed in the chat. We'll get into everything tonight, guys. Sorry, it's like coming in my peripherals the whole time.
Phrasing
with what happened to Charlie Kirk. It's been a crazy week. I mean, we started last week's stream talking about Charlie Kirk, talking about everything that happened because it was fresh. It had just happened hours before we went live.
I had 6 things queued up that I was going to talk about last week, and it all just kind of got taken over by the big news of that day.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. And what a stream it was. I think we had record turnouts, a lot of new subscribers. Guys, almost 10,000 subscribers this week. You guys are absolutely amazing. Welcome to all of our new subscribers. I hope you're enjoying the content here on the channel. Just a heads up, I want to talk a little bit about the content. coming to this channel in the future. If you guys have been watching Question Period Live, I do have to regretfully report I will not be able to continue that show. There's been good turnout. The biggest problem, and I'm not going to get into a lot of personal stuff, a bit of a health thing that happened today. In fact, I got home just in time to stream. Scary news from the doctor, but don't worry, everything's going to be okay. It's just they want me to lighten a bit of the stress that I take on here doing this stuff and what I put on over top of my responsibilities. I had to cut something, and since that's the newest show, since people haven't attached themselves to that yet, for now, at least, I will be stepping away from Question Period Live. So my apologies for anybody who was looking forward to that. I will try and replace it with other content. So there will still be things for you guys to watch. As for our American viewers, you know, people saw my rant video yesterday. Matt, I know you watched the rant video. I think a lot of people caught that rant video about the government, about where we're headed. If there's one thing I've noticed in the last little while, folks, it's that there's a lot of negativity around Canada and its politics. It seems like whenever we talk about Canada, there isn't a lot of good news. So I was sitting here thinking, if we're not going to do Question Period Live, maybe occasionally, we're not always talking about Charlie Kirk, but maybe we bring in some stuff going on in America with the culture wars, with the left, things that are out of control. So it's not always bad Canadian news we're talking about. And I'm not saying that it's bad American we switch it for, but maybe some things to get our minds off of what Mark Carney's doing, and maybe have a balance between the two so that you're still getting your Canadian news when it's necessary, but we bring in some lighthearted stuff or things for people to pay attention to that aren't just Canada and the absolute shit show that's going on there. If you guys want to see that kind of content, if you want to see a balance of new and old content, throw one in the chat. I know some channels talk about, can you believe what The View did? Or can you believe what's happening with CNN or any of these guys and the craziness that's going on with their reporting? I'd like to bring stuff like that in. You know, lefties losing it. Some really fun stuff. Just so that, you know, we have a balance between what Carney did.
Should I film myself having a crying temper tantrum and put it online?
If you got fired, yes. Health and family comes before this channel. I agree. This community is important. Look at all those ones. It sounds to me like the regulars want to see a mix of content. I'm looking forward to it. Tote coming in. Jimmy Kimmel got canceled today. Are you kidding me? Did he really? I think we have to get that. And we're going to talk about that. Let's, we had that queued up. Let's bring it in. For anybody who saw my video or didn't see it, because again, YouTube didn't even recommend or send out notifications for our latest video, which is sitting out now. I would encourage everybody who hasn't seen it to go and watch it, check it out. ABC yanks Jimmy Kimmel's show indefinitely after remarks about Charlie Kirk. Again, another CTV wacko headline. I love how these guys stretch it out like this. Disney's ABC is taking Jimmy Kimmel's late night show off the air indefinitely amid a controversy over his recent comments about Charlie Kirk's suspected killer. Now, what's funny is that the video I put out a couple hours ago, well, at that time, it was just speculation. The FCC was calling for Jimmy to be suspended. In that video, I stated they're not going to suspend him. You know, just like Stephen Colbert, his ratings are going down the toilet as it is. They bring their politics into it. And while most late night hosts typically took jabs at politicians, this is overboard. It's overkill and there's a lot of bias. So it doesn't surprise me that they shut it down altogether. But I want to get to Disney's comments. Because their comments, if they've got it quoted here, here it is. Oh no, that was the FCC's comments. Let me see here. The announcement came Wednesday evening after at least one major operator of ABC affiliated stations said it would not broadcast the show for the foreseeable future. The operator Nexstar said it strongly objects to recent comments made by Mr. Kimmel concerning the killing of Charlie Kirk and will replace the show with other programs in its ABC affiliated markets. What's funny is they didn't do that on Monday when Kimmel made these remarks. They waited until everybody lost their shit, and Benny Johnson brought them on. He brought on the chair of the FCC to say, "What are we doing?"
Well, we were talking before the show, and they're not doing this out of some, you know, moral code or altruism. It's a mathematical equation. How much do we have to pay Kimmel? How much does his show bring in versus how much of a hit are we going to take from this bad publicity? That's all it is. Which way is the wind blowing?
Yeah. What's better for business? Nilok, $5 super chat. Hit the like button, folks. I couldn't agree more. Let's get this stream out there. Not only is JK gone, he's also been told to make a donation and apologize to Erica. I don't think they'd want his money, to be honest, at this point. Squid saying, do it in the Trump voice. Hey, Jimmy Kimmel, you're fired. You out of here. I know a lot of late night hosts, Jimmy. I know a lot of late night hosts. They're wonderful. But Jimmy Kimmel, you're a scumbag. You're a piece of crap. You get out of here. Go have a lollipop. Go feel better about yourself. There goes Jimmy Kimmel, ladies and gentlemen. He's gone for the foreseeable future. I think it's great. He's not coming back. He's not coming back. If he does, boy, the ratings on that would tank instantly. That would be an instant flop of a show. Let's get into business. Let's get down to business. Again, last week, folks, with the passing of Charlie Kirk, I shouldn't say the passing, with the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk. We spent all last week's show just taking in what had just happened hours before the live stream. A lot of things got pushed to the back, but one of the questions is the way the left perceives the right and how the right moves on forward. We've been talking about this all week long, even with videos that were pulled where I was comparing articles, CBC talking about how Charlie Kirk called for the extermination of the LGBT community, and they still haven't retracted that, by the way. Jimmy Kimmel's been fired, but the CBC doesn't have to retract that stuff. CTV News is putting out hit piece after hit piece after hit piece this week to twist the woke narrative that somehow it's the right-wing fault that everything happened to Charlie Kirk. They just won't give up in their endless pursuit for woke mediocrity. Bradley Wilcox, $5 super chat. Mark Carney is messed Alberta Independence all the way. He is messed. We're going to talk about that tonight. Thank you for the super chat. But one of the things, Matt, you've been talking about with others and you've been constructing is kind of where the right side fits in, where we go from here. How we perceive things. What's your take after this last week?
So I spent the week just kind of contemplating this, and I'm going to get the meme up on the story. But first, I want to share with you guys a little bit. This is going to be more of a thought piece and more of an opinion piece, more than direct news like we've been covering. But hey, we're doing it live. So 10 years ago, I've always been a libertarian. I am not a conservative. I am a libertarian. But 10 years ago, most of my friends and the people I associated with would be considered left. I was very involved in the metal community, the cosplay and convention scene, and with gamers. And all of my friends would be what you would consider today the woke left, to be honest. And the vid really changed who I am as a person because, I am also an atheist. I know a lot of the people in the chat are believers, and I saw a lot of belief in the Charlie Kirk content because he himself was a very religious man.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 years ago, I couldn't even be in the same room with a religious person without going, there is no God, you're an idiot. And, when the vid first happened and I started going to protests and I found myself on their side, standing in company with these people. And at first I was very annoyed. I was like, really? I have to be on this side? You guys, have put me over here. But the level of hate and vitriol that I received from my so-called former friends, it really altered my perception. And, I've been standing with my believing comrades for 5 years now, and I've associated with them more than I probably ever had in my previous life. And I will say that I will 100% take you as my neighbor and have you welcome at my table over any of the people that I formerly associated with. And I will stand shoulder to shoulder with all of you, even though I don't believe, and I likely never will believe. I will stand with you against what's to come over those people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
it's funny that
I want to talk about.
It's funny you mention it like that because what I've heard over the last week, especially in my comment section People chiming in saying, like, when you hear about the firings and people facing a little bit of karma for their behavior, their inexcusable behavior over the last week, the amount of people who have reached out and said to me, hey, you know what, my friends list has decreased rapidly this week. I have family members, just like kind of like during the pandemic, I have family members that have turned their back on me because I was appalled at what happened to Charlie Kirk. I'm now standing alongside with Donald Trump in the belief that justice needs to be carried out swiftly. We had a video showing today that got pulled very fast, how ABC News, I believe it was standing behind Charlie Kirk's assassin, saying, oh, his text messages were very thoughtful and very kind, and we just can't understand how he got to this level. They were sympathizing with a man who went and got a firearm and took an innocent man's life instead of demanding justice. Nobody asked for their opinions on this individual. Nobody asked for them to dig deep into his background. People want justice.
Like, even if he was like the nicest person in his Discord with his husband, they, them, furry thing, whatever they want to call that, then it doesn't really matter. You're still a horrible human and horrible killer. Like, why even bring that up?
It's surprising to me because when you think about, and I'll turn it around to their side of the spectrum for a second, because you look at somebody like George Floyd, right? When George Floyd died, and everybody was calling for the prosecution of the police officers who were involved in his arrest, nobody looked into their text messages or looked into their backgrounds or said this is where they come from, or this is why, like, maybe they were racist and they have a long stem of racism in their bloodlines or anything like that. There was no investigation. It was just prosecute them, fire them, throw them in jail, let justice take hold of these men for putting their knees down on somebody's neck. We all know the story, but it's just funny to me how there's such a double standard when it comes to the left side of the spectrum versus the right.
I long ago learned, and honestly, this does apply to both sides, that people on their teams are completely okay with people's rights being trampled, the charter or the Constitution in the States being used as toilet paper, violence, whatever it is, as long as it's the guy on their team doing it to people they don't like for reasons they agree with.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I found funny this week, and again, I'm not an overly active Christian. My family is Protestant mixed with Christian values. We were a family that never really practiced. Like, we believed, but we didn't practice, if that makes sense. And to a certain extent this week, especially at Charlie Kirk's vigil, did I see what those invested in religion were expressing and how they felt. And really, it was truly remarkable to see what they were taking in. And like you said, that while you don't necessarily participate to the level of commitment that they do, we can stand together. We can agree that this is a problem that needs to be taken care of. It's something that needs to be handled before it gets any worse, because
you can't doubt that energy. Like, I don't believe in any form of deity, and I felt the energy through the live stream. Like, it's crazy.
But what's funny is that at that vigil, nobody was talking about, I mean, the presenters were talking about religion. Again, Charlie Kirk was a very religious individual, but nobody was asking, oh, are you Christian? Are you, like, there was no status measuring contest going on to say, I'm devout, I'm not, I'm this, I'm that. It was just people coming together for a common cause, putting all of their differences aside and standing together in arms to show their support for the loss of an innocent man. And when you look at the left and how quickly their views change, especially when you go from 6 months ago, they're all standing doing the chicken dance saying elbows up, Team Canada. Will there always be a Canada? Oh, there will always be a Canada. No 51st. And then this last weekend, the Canada Forever rally, they're ripping flags out of people's hands, Canadian flags, and throwing them in the streets, stomping on them. You can't tell me elbows up and you love Canada, but as soon as somebody goes against you, well, to hell with my country and to hell with those flags. That's the difference, and it's all in the behavior. But a large portion of the behavior we're seeing is coming from schools. It's coming from teachers pushing their radical views onto students. It's coming from the media that is twisting its information in order to push a narrative. You have governments trying to push the narrative because it's beneficial to them. We've had a complete falling out of our society. Look at what happened over the last 4 years with Joe Biden in control. Build back better. Nothing was built, nothing was back, certainly, and nothing was better. It was a mess. And now you've got Trump cleaning it up, and people are mad about it. So where do we go from here?
Don't touch my crime. Don't touch my crime. Right? It's my crime.
Just comply.
So I have a thing complied because I'm going to pull up this this meme that I saw. If you want to pull that up, Derek. And I saw this last week. Also, he's dead, and you people aren't going to do anything about it. 100 like him can die, and you still won't do anything. You all just go to work the next day because you've got bills to pay. You'll forget about it in a month. You've already lost your country a while ago. You lost it to the LGBT, the illegal immigrants, and the extreme left. And that really hit me because as I read that, I thought, so many things have happened, in the West, in the various countries, and the left goes and does their big giant marches. And, we had one real significant moment, and they unleashed the horses on us and seized bank accounts the last time we tried to organize and demand change. And as I was reading that, I thought to myself, well, tomorrow morning, I got to go to work. I got to get up. I got to go to the gym. I got to make breakfast and get lunch, get my daughter to school, and I'm going to work. And as somebody who does content like this and has been ranting about politics for years, I'm probably not going to forget, but your average suburban soccer mom with 3 kids and a mortgage and the dad and the hockey games and whatever else you've got going on, it is tough for them to focus on these massive life change, and it's nonstop. So it's like, okay, yes, Charlie Kirk was assassinated and everybody's really upset. It's very stark. But what about next week? Where we are now, which is next week, and there's been these vigils, but okay, what about next week? What about next month? The next thing will happen. Russia will launch a drone at Poland or something, and it'll be all about that, and this will go to the wayside. Look at the poor girl who got stabbed on the train. Who's talking about her now? And that was literally the day before. The news cycle is so non-stop and fast. How can people focus?
Well, and that's part of what I was talking about at the beginning of the show when I said, look, when we talk about Canadian politics on this channel, it's always, look what Mark Carney did. Look what Pierre's doing. Look at this bill that came out. Look at how much we're being taxed. Look at it. Negative, 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 negative. Very seldom do we have something good happening or something where we can have a laugh at or something we can say, oh my God, can you believe this is how people are behaving? That's why I asked the audience at the beginning of the stream, we've gained a lot of subscribers from America over this whole Charlie Kirk thing. And I don't want people thinking that I'm selling out to America by covering American topics in Canada. But that's where I said, why don't we start picking on The View? Why don't we start picking on people like Jimmy Kimmel and finding their hypocrisy, their weird moments, their funny stuff that we can bring up and laugh at, the lefties, the culture wars. Like maybe we start branching out a bit and getting away from all the negative. And when it warrants talking about it, absolutely we bring it in because, well, especially in Canada, we want to know what our government is doing, but we don't want it to be controlling our lives and so much vitriol when we're trying to, like you said, pay our mortgages, pay our bills, get through life. You can't be focused on the negative all the time.
But also, unless we do things, how do we change it? That's like the subject of the rest of my piece here is like, what do we do as regular everyday citizens? We can't go protest every day. We have jobs. We have mortgages. That's why the left always has such a good turnout, because it's college kids who, if they have class, can just skip them. It's people on welfare. It's people who don't work, or paid professionals, as some might think. I'll turn on my Alex Jones for a minute. These people are busting. They're paid.
And they're putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. We got what we have to watch out for is a lot of people, and again, I see it because people, this was part of my rant yesterday. You know, people looked at the Freedom Convoy and said, wow, that was the first time I felt Canadian in so long, especially over the pandemic. Like, Americans don't know.
They had to crush it.
Well, exactly. But if you're in America, and shout out to our American viewers who are either joining us in this or watching it after, in America, like, you had your pandemic and you had those videos where people were wearing masks and yelling at each other and stuff. But in Canada, it was one of the countries that had the longest mandates of non-contact in the world. It was one of the last to remove its stipulations on people. You weren't allowed to go to a movie theater. You weren't allowed to go to a restaurant. And eventually you weren't allowed to go back to a restaurant unless you showed a card saying that you'd been jabbed. You were allowed to go to a Walmart or a Costco and stand shoulder to shoulder with people, but God forbid a movie theater or a restaurant where they could spread people out. Nope, no contact, no anything, no fun, no lifestyle.
Costco so much during that because you had to be 6 feet apart, right? So in line, you had to stand 6 feet away from the person in front of you. But when you got up to the registers are right next to each other, so you're literally practically touching the person in the line next to you. It was so insane.
So the reason the Freedom Convoy happened, and the reason the Freedom Convoy was so successful, because of what you said about going to work in reference to that. A lot of people say, hey, how come we can never organize something like another Freedom Convoy? How come the Canada First rally wasn't as big as the UK's and everything else? What you have to realize is that the Freedom Convoy spawned from truckers being told they were essentially going to be out of work. They were going to be shut down. A large portion of their business involves trucking materials between Canada to the United States. You weren't allowed to go over the border unless you had the jab. So truckers were saying, I sit in my truck all day. I don't talk to anybody. I don't touch anybody. I don't go near anybody. I shouldn't have to have that to go over the border if I don't want it. With the threat of all of them losing their jobs, especially today when you look at the East Indian population that are taking those jobs, truckers had had enough and assembled en masse along with those who were fatigued from the government's draconian regulations. You will never see a protest of that scale in the near future ever again. The reason for it is, like Matt said, people need to go to work. People have to pay their bills. They'd love to stand up to the government. They really would. You see it relevant in APP meetings and any kind of gatherings that they do for these things of information to say, hey, we want to get away from the government. Alberta Next panels. And I'm only using those as examples because I live here and I see the highlights. But people are prepared when it's available to them to go out and get the information, but assembling everybody, getting everybody together under a common cause is harder than some people think. It's not just as simple as go viral on the internet and announce a protest. How do you get people active?
That is a very good question, and we're going to talk about it right now. Honestly, my piece on what now, and then, so that meme that I shared earlier, I guess it's not a meme, it's somebody's status. I shared that on my personal Facebook, and shout out to Sabrina. She said, so what do you suggest we do? What now? And I had some thoughts on that. And I've had these thoughts. Some of them are newer. Some of them have been around for a while. And I'm just going to go through some of it. So the very first one is kids. You've got to get to the kids because they can't make more. They have to recruit. But first and foremost, you have to have some. And most of us are, I mean, I know you've got 3, Derek, you're doing your part, but I'm not. I only had 1. But the people that are coming into this country from other places, they're having 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. And then those 3 to 6 kids are going to have 3 to 6 kids. What do you don't have to be a mathematician to do the numbers on that of what our country will look like in 10, 20 years from now. And more importantly, how that will shift the demographics and voting power, because they're not joining us. They're coming in and they're forming their own areas, their own communities, and they all think alike and they vote alike. And if you go into these areas where they have settled, their local representative is one of them, which, to be fair, makes sense. But when they start moving forward and putting more, so we have to have kids, and then you have to be involved with your kids. You can't just ship them off to the government indoctrination center known as public school every day and then hands off. Like, you have to talk to your kids about your life philosophy and pass it on to them. You have to meet their teacher and get your opinion on them and talk to them. You have to ask your kids, what are they teaching you in school today? Because I've had a couple of instances where they sent something home with my kids and they're like, whoa, what is this? You know? So you have to be involved with their life and teach them and ask them what they're doing at school. What are they teaching you at school? You can't just send them there and, you know, that's it. You come home and you just turn on the TV and then your kid comes and does his homework and whatever. So that is the first and foremost thing, is the kids. And I say they, but they have learned this a long time ago, and they've been working for 20 years. Because even when we were in school, it was started slow, but they're educating them in their way of thinking, and we're not.
Yeah.
So that's point number one.
Give me 1 second here. I got to get to these super chats because they've been sitting for so long. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. You know, we get on a topic and we get moving. I just don't ever want anybody to think we're ignoring you. Bradley Wilcox says Danielle Smith got back to you. No, which is funny because usually when I message any of her people, including her press secretary, they're very fast to get back to me. I guess they didn't like what I had to say about them. And I'm going to get into that a little later in the stream because I know a lot of people were angry at my comments yesterday about Danielle. Spoiler alert, no, I'm not walking them back. But we're going to talk about that later in the show. Bradley, thank you for the $2 super chat. Nilok, $5 super chat. With all due respect, Christians won't be forgetting or moving on from Charlie. He became a martyr. That's significant to Christians. We will be focused. It's good, but what we're talking about is people in general that get swept up in their day-to-day lives. You know, it's not a matter of people forgetting about Charlie Kirk. People haven't forgot about JFK. But what we're talking about is that it doesn't weigh as heavy on them 2 weeks down the road, a month down the road, 2 months down the road, because they're not directly connected to it and they've been swept up in their day-to-days. Just like when the government has their scandals. Does everybody remember SDTC? The parliament getting shut down and being told we're not going to reopen until we get those documents? They had an election and reopened. Like, what happened? So that's kind of what we're getting at, Nilok, but thank you for the $5 super chat. I get what you mean. I stand with you on that one. I wholeheartedly agree when it comes to Christians remembering. And everybody for that matter. Mike with a $5 super chat. How can we change if patriotism can't get a footing in Canada because everybody's afraid to stand up and be counted? Everyone else is revolting. That's a good question. Matt, what's your take on that one?
I've been to a bunch of the different protests and gatherings in my province, and the turnout, other than the convoy, which occupied the front of the Manitoba legislature for like a month, it's not that big. It doesn't gain any traction. Nothing comes of it. People gather on the ledge. They have their microphone and their speakers. They speak. 100, 200 maybe people show up and wave flags and cheer, and that's it.
I can tell you why nobody gets involved. And I can tell you why you're not seeing it, folks. It's the same thing I just said about the Freedom Convoy. People's paychecks were being affected. An entire industry that was dependent on the success of this country was being locked down. You were going to have shipping shortages. You just think about this for a second. If the truckers didn't comply and lost their jobs, you would have had shipping delays. You would have had stores saying there's no products on the shelf. It's exactly what Trudeau wanted. Mass hysteria. No Ghostbusters reference on that one. Just plain old mass hysteria. The truckers instead decided to take a stance because it was affecting their ability to provide for their families. This is what Master Snatch always talked about when he said a $10 butter revolution is coming. Once people are affected in a way where everyone is affected, you will see people stand up very quickly. The problem when it comes to patriotism, and I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because I'm one of those people. It's a lot easier to get on social media, stand in front of a camera, go on your TikToks, go on whatever, and bitch about the government. Getting out and actually being a part of the action, going to these rallies, getting involved, takes a lot of work. And again, with people's day-to-days, you think about how much people struggle to pay their bills, put a mortgage payment in, keep a roof over their heads in general, with property taxes, utility bills, internet costs, gasoline in their car, insurance, car payments, cell phone bills. They don't have time to walk away from their sometimes multiple jobs to stand out with a sign and voice their concerns. The government has put us in this situation by making life unaffordable. It's almost as if it was all a part of their plan, folks. I'll get into that when we talk about the government a little later in the show, because we're kind of getting off here. Not physically, we're getting off topic. Snow with a $5 super chat. I ran with the convoy from Chilliwack to Edmonton. Couldn't afford to run further with them. It was the high point of a now 30 years in the trucking business. You know what? It's appreciated for what you did, and thank you for what you did. I thank all truckers. I've said to Tamara, to Chris Barber, anybody who was involved in that, Tom Marazzo, Keith Wilson, Eva Chipiuk, we owe this trucking convoy an unpayable debt. What they did for our freedoms, and people can say, oh, they didn't do anything, our bank accounts were frozen, it was everything else. Those restrictions, those authoritarian restrictions would have continued on Canadians for God knows how long if they hadn't have gone and done anything. And if you want further proof of that, look no further than Alberta. 2 weeks after the convoy was shut down, Jason Kenney was on TV, Fat Stalin. He was on TV saying, oh, we're going to have to stop some of these mandates. We're going to have to shut them down. They said, we think it's safe now. No, you didn't want another uprising like you had in Coots. You didn't want another problem. That's why the truckers did it. The truckers didn't just fire a warning shot on the government. They blew a hole in their boat. Thank you for that. Tommy Temper, another guy I ran into at the vigil. Nice meeting you at the Charlie Kirk Candlelight Vigil in Edmonton. Thanks for my channel shout out. Maybe a collab in the future. I'll do what I can. We're real busy these days, Tommy, but I do appreciate you stopping by. Thank you for the super chat. Marcus with a $5 super chat. V for Vendetta should be the social business model of all societies around the globe. I mean, they're not wrong.
Any more?
No, we're good. We're caught up.
All right. Okay. I'm going to move on to my second one then, and that is community. And I know for a lot of you in the chat, that community is going to be your church, and that's great. But you need to get involved with not only your group of people, like you need to find like-minded people, friends, and just talk to people. Be out in the world. You know how many people I know who just, I mean, I'm sort of one of those, but you know how many people I know who just never leave their house and just go to work and come home, go to work and come home, and they don't even know their neighbors' names. And that's a problem because it's very easy to slip into, all these people when you don't know any of them. So get involved in your community, coach your kids' soccer team, go to your church, go start a D&D group or a shooting club or whatever it is you feel is necessary to do. But get involved in the community. Like, you know how many times you see on those neighborhood Facebook pages where somebody posts and they're like, my neighbor is doing this and what should I do? Should I call the police? Should I call the bylaw officers? And I'm just like, have you gone over there and talked to them about it?
Yeah, have you rang the doorbell?
No.
Yep.
Clutching my pearls. I can't do that. Well, there's your problem. Like, people don't even know the names of their own neighbors, let alone the guy halfway down the street.
It's funny you say that because we had that. So our street in Spruce Grove, it's a newer area. They're building up the street. All the houses are brand new. One of the guys who bought a house a few doors down went around about a month or so ago, and he was trying to ask people about, I think it had to do with who they were using for landscapers, something like that. Also wanted to introduce himself because he just purchased the house over there. And he came by our house and my wife opened the door, introduced herself, and he was quite friendly. Mentioned he just had kids, was moving to the neighborhood. Everything was great. Within half an hour, the wife goes on the local group in Spruce Grove and somebody's posting a picture of him saying, this guy came by ringing my doorbell. Does anybody know who he is or what he wanted?
Right.
My wife says, he's moving to the neighborhood. Maybe you should have went on even the intercom. I understand people's security concerns these days. You hear about people ringing the bell and busting through the door. You've got an intercom on there. At least say, hello, can I help you? Like, I don't understand why people are so broken apart in communication. It's like the invention of smartphones and internet and social media has moved people into the ultimate form of introverts. Like, even when we go to the kids' swimming lessons or anything like that, the parents are all on their phones. They're not even watching their kids partake in what they're doing. They're wrapped up.
I grew up in the same area you did. I talk to people. I'm sort of an extroverted introvert, if you will. And like, I'll start up conversations with some of the parents. You should see the look of horror on some of their faces when I just started talking to them and going, hey, what's going on? Which one's your kid? Or whatever. It's crazy.
There's definitely a disconnect with society. People tend to segregate more. Mm-hmm. And I think that the internet has caused a large portion of that problem. And it's funny because the last time I came back to Manitoba was during, what was that, our 20-somethingth reunion from high school? Yeah. Okay, 25th. I think it was 25 years. I think so. Either way, I came back. I was invited to this reunion, even though I didn't graduate school in Winnipeg. I went to school with all these folks from kindergarten all the way to grade 10. So I was asked, do you want to come back? Do you want to hang out with everybody? Absolutely, I do. So I went to this reunion, and the amount of people, I came home and said to the wife that, because she was unable to attend, I didn't just ditch my wife. The amount of people that I ran into that I asked them, what are you doing these days? What's happening? How are you? And a lot of them said, I don't go out anymore. I'm a bit of an introvert. I have a social anxiety disorder. A lot of people use the words social anxiety. They said, I don't typically go out. I don't meet people. I was going to get married. I didn't want to, and I could count them on two hands. How many people told me that? And I said to the wife, it's funny that there's so many people that I've reconnected with over the years that I grew up with that were the most outspoken people in the world that you never would have thought this would be their fate. But now when you see them, they're completely cut off from the world. They're scared of the world. And I said, with our generation, what happened? Did they put something in the water? Was it something in the food? Like, why all of a sudden does everybody in our generation have anxiety and social construct issues?
Well, I think the internet obviously has a big thing to do with that, but also being locked in your house and not being able to leave for a year for a lot of those people. Like, I didn't care. I went out and didn't, like, my work never stopped because even though I'm a finisher, like a flooring installer, construction was considered an essential trade. And during the first 2 weeks of lockdown, it was like actually shut down for 2 weeks. And then everybody kind of poked their heads out and went, oh, we're not all going to die. And the government's going to give us a bunch of money to stay in our house. Let's renovate. So I was doing cosmetic renovations at a ridiculous pace. I'd never been more busy in my life for people who were locked in their houses. I was redoing floors, refinishing hardwood, doing backsplashes, all this crazy stuff.
Well, it's funny because Sarah King had said in the comments, do you remember the times where we used to ride our bikes until the lights came on? I mean, Matt, you and I had what I would call a never childhood because like my kids, for example, up until we moved, like where we were in Calgary, it was a nice neighborhood, or at least it used to be. But being so close to the train, to the vagrants walking around, you wouldn't let your kids go walk around the block or go down the street to 7-Eleven or anything like that because of the way society has changed, the way the police are a little more relaxed with crime, and the way that our society is functioning. However, when you and I were kids, I mean, we used to just leave. We'd leave the house and we'd come back.
When we bussed to Grant Park from Southdale by ourselves to see Jurassic Park. Can you imagine letting your 13-year-old bus by themselves anywhere now?
Never in a million years. And that's the difference with how society and the internet and everything else has changed the world, is that like our parents would just say, give us a call and let us know where you're going to be. How many nights did we sneak out of my parents' house and walk around till 2:00 in the morning?
Getting Slurpees at 3 in the morning when we're
getting Slurpees and just, acting like idiots. And when we were found out to be doing that, the parents just said, you guys really got to stop that. You shouldn't be doing it. Nobody had an aneurysm. Nobody collapsed and said you can't do those things. That was the difference in society, was you were allowed to explore, you were allowed to discover.
And
And
without that
nowadays, you
independence, like,
can't.
that builds our independence and our, like, at, my daughter's age, I could navigate the transit system. I could go here, I could bike there. Like, I would leave house after Saturday morning cartoons. We had to leave because there was nothing else on. You had your block of Saturday morning cartoons that ended at 11, and then unless you wanted to watch, whatever the news is on TV, you had to go outside and do something. So we would disappear at like 11 in the morning, and we wouldn't come back until supper time. And then after supper, we'd go back outside, and we wouldn't come in until it was dark.
Yeah, David Brewer says here, I used to go to rock concerts at 13 years old. No one thought anything about it. It's funny, my 13th birthday was at the Winnipeg Arena to see Guns N' Roses with Faith No More. And they didn't get on stage. Guns N' Roses, Faith No More didn't show up. And Guns N' Roses didn't hit the stage till, I think it was 9:30 at night. The concert ended at 1 a.m. I had school the next day. My parents weren't mad. It was just part of your rights as becoming a teenager. It's, well, now things have changed. It's you're gonna be tired tomorrow. Same thing with I think I went to Pink Floyd that year too. My parents let me get on the bus and go downtown to see Pink Floyd because my friend's parents couldn't make the concert. And all granted, that was my introduction to Pink Floyd. I'd never heard of Floyd at that time. Well, I heard about Pink Floyd because of their Walking Hammers on the other brick in the wall video that was always on TV. But I digress. I hadn't heard of Pink Floyd fully in their catalog, and my mind was blown. But it was all because I was allowed to discover. I was trusted to have that freedom. And society was trusted that if I wasn't looking for trouble, I usually wouldn't find it. And that's what's changed now, is that you have court systems that allow people, hey, this guy assaulted a child. Well, we'll let him out of jail in 6 months. We'll let him walk the streets. I seen a post today of an East Indian man who took a picture of himself with a little girl in the background, no more than 4 years old, and said, beautiful girl. And he posted it on the internet, got arrested. And he's out on bail. He's walking around.
Yeah, that's all a little insane. We won't get into what I think about that because then we'll get pulled for sure.
Yeah. Unreal. Society's just absolutely crazy. One of the biggest things that I got into this week, when we talk about where we are and where we're going, this is all the cause of the media. And I've been saying it all week long. Teachers, when we were children, didn't push politics onto us. They didn't talk about gender. They didn't talk about gay, straight. How do you see yourself? We had a gay teacher in the 3rd grade that you knew he was flamboyantly gay. Yeah. But nobody really said anything because it was just, you got on with your day. You didn't really pay. Granted, it was 3rd grade. But nobody made a big deal out of it. The hyperbole that we live in society where it's now crammed down everybody's throat. And the media has to spin it a certain way. Go ahead.
Trans people represent like 0.0001% of the population, but I feel like that's like 90% of what I have to see in my face every day. Like, you would think that their rights were the most trying issue of our time.
Yeah.
Even though there's not that many. And yeah, I think you need to keep all ideologies out of school. And I know there's a lot of people who are like, we need to bring the Lord's Prayer back and put the commandments in the classroom. I don't want that either, because that's not an issue for a public school to teach. That's between a parent and their children.
Fair enough.
There's nobody stopping you to say to your child, hey, grab your pals in the hallway before class, do the Lord's Prayer real quick, or after school, or go to church, or start a club. But forcing everybody, even though they might not believe in that, is crazy. But also keep all of your ideologies out of school. My school-age child does not need to know who their teacher's God is, who they're married to. Like, do you remember knowing who any of our teachers' spouses were when we were in school?
Nope.
No, I don't. That's private. That's not our business. So
Mhm.
all ideologies, whether your kids shouldn't know who their teacher's spouse is, which god they pray to, which political party they belong to or they voted for. Just teach my kid how to do math, how to read, how to write, and then send them home. All
Yeah.
the other stuff is between the parent and the child. You want to teach the kid politics? That's between the parent and the child, not the public school system funded by our tax dollars. They are not there
That's
to
right.
push anything.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've noticed. So when we had our kids in school in Calgary, and I know people are, oh God, your kids are in the public school system. Yes, I'm a fan of tradition, and I'm a fan of my kids having social constructs in their life that they can meet other children and make friends and get into trouble and hopefully have a childhood. That's the primary reason we send our kids to school, so that they can make friends and socialize. But I'll say that while the kids were going to school in Calgary, we were over the teachers' heads all the time. What are you teaching the kids? What are you talking about here? Word got around my son's school at one point that a teacher was being retrained because she came into the school with her purple hair and talked to everybody about her pronouns. And I asked the principal immediately, why is that being an issue in a school? These kids go up to grade 4. Why are we talking about it? A bunch of parents were outraged. They had to pull it out of the school. It's the parents' jobs to be active in this day and age, to question everything. And I'll
That's what I
tell you,
touched on earlier.
we breathed a lot of relief when we moved to Spruce Grove. And we walked into the school to get the kids in their first day, and my son's school was playing O Canada, and it wasn't even the edited woke version, it was the original. They simply they appreciate their country every single day. And I said, wow, you guys play the national anthem? And the principal said, well, why wouldn't we? And I said, they didn't do that in Calgary. And I'll tell you right now that anytime I've asked that school for their itineraries, for what they're teaching the kids, they're right on top of it. They've never had an issue. In fact, they've invited parents to the classrooms to say, if you have any concerns, we'll send you a report every day of websites we accessed on the smart boards, everything we're doing. My wife can sign in to what they're doing at any point in the day. It's absolutely fantastic that we don't have as many concerns.
That's actually really
as
cool.
we did in Calgary. Yeah. So it's like they're trying to change things as much as they can. But yet this year, when Danielle Smith was talking about sexually graphic images in books in elementary schools and having to remove them, you still had some teachers in Spruce Grove, again, weaponizing their classrooms by covering their books with tarps and saying, well, Danielle Smith has banned everything. I don't have time to catalog. So now when the kids come in, they're going to say, how come we can't read books? And I'm going to tell them how bad their premier is. You can't do that. You can't bring your politics into a classroom of children. And there should be a definite zero tolerance policy on that in every single school. As you said, we don't need to know your spouse. We don't need to know what you do after school. As far as we're concerned, it's like employees in a job, you and a boss. You go to your job, you do your work, you come home. Your private life is your private life. That's the way it should always remain.
Mm-hmm. And to the people who are saying, like, I've seen a lot of different things about, like, God's not allowed in school. Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Sure.
But the teacher should not be standing at the front of the class leading the children, because I remember in the 80s, there was 2 kids in my elementary school that were Jehovah's Witnesses. They had to stand in the hall during the Lord's Prayer, because we had the Lord's Prayer at the beginning of, and that's not fair, but that's not what school is for. You're more than welcome to start your own club and, you know, pray in the hallway real quick before class, or pray on the playground real quick before class, or do it outside after school, and or start your own club and have like an hour-long thing. They'll give you a room. You can do what you want, and you have specific schools, if that's what you're really into, where you can send your kids for this learning. And, you know, you have your church and you have your parents, and if you want to teach your kids that they're polyamorous, blue-haired they thems after class, that's your business too, if you're a parent who's into that. But that's not what a public school is for.
I got to get to a few super chats.
Get it.
Nilok, $2 super chat. It's the fear of going viral for the wrong reasons. Absolutely. Scotty, he's talking about protesting, by the way. Scotty, $2 super chat. 3rd gen Education is abstractions like a little experimental. I'm assuming it's education because it says third gen ed. Thank you for the super chat. Carney. Does anyone know the words to the Maple Leaf Forever? God, I used to. I think it was "We stand together, we bring our hopes and dreams." I believe that's how it starts. I'd have to really think about it because I used to. Snow 181 with $5 super chat. Let's trigger the left. Start your streams with the national anthem. Well, we could. We could snatch that. Matt's making great points. He always makes great points. In fact, that's part of the reason we brought Matt onto the show. I didn't know much about politics. Again, as we're speaking in this stream, our schools didn't bring up politics at all. In fact, anytime we were talking anything political, it was more how the political system worked in terms of seats in the House, where the capital of Canada was, where, policies are put forward, and history.
Mm-hmm.
It was all history after that.
Such as
there was no discussions of, at that time it would have been, I guess, Brian Mulroney as the prime minister and his opposition and everything. They weren't talking about those things.
No.
I remember, I believe it was high school when Lucien Bouchard lost his leg to whatever the flesh-eating disease or whatever it was he had. And I remember my parents saying, oh my God, this and that. And I heard teachers talking about it. And I said, hey, my parents were talking about that. And they just said, oh, that's great. We don't really talk about that in school. That was back then. Mm-hmm. Why can't we have that now? Why can't we have it now?
I was apolitical until I was 30 something. I never talked about politics or voted or did any of it because it didn't have as big of an effect on my life as it came to be, which is how it's supposed to be. The hand of the state should be so light upon the average person, and they should have so little control over your day-to-day existence that it doesn't matter who sits in the big chair. That's the real goal. Not, I want my politician in to force my views on the other half, or I want my politician to force my views on the other half. It should be, the government's not supposed to be an active participant. They're supposed to be a referee. They're supposed to be public servants. And we've just gone so far into this, they are the leaders, they are the rulers, and they're somehow made of a greater flesh than the rest of us.
So Nilox got a $5 super chat, and I do have to say we'll agree to disagree to an extent, because I was always told 3 arguments you're never going to win in life are religion, politics, and everything else. Agree to disagree about God in schools. I felt like it's growing godlessness that is making the problems and amplifying them, but I get your point. So what we're trying to say is, so for example, if I was Catholic and I wanted my kids to be around religion at school, I'd put them in a Catholic school. Public schools, and again, Matt, we went to school with kids who, one of them was Jehovah's Witness. There were Jewish kids in our school. You wouldn't have them required to say the Lord's Prayer, especially if you're Jewish, right? So I agree with them taking it out and saying, okay, we're not going to require the Lord's Prayer in school. We used to have to do it. I think it was all the way up until about the 4th grade before they took it out of school.
In there.
Yeah. And when they took it out, they just said, I remember teachers saying, if you wish to still say it, you can in your own time and place, but we just don't do it as a group anymore. And for those who don't wish to participate, it's the same with religion, to each their own. I think that one of the reasons religion exists on so many fronts is because people have choice. Now, I'm not going to insult anybody's religion and say one's right over the other, but people have the choice. It's based on faith. And one of my arguments when it comes to faith is that you can't force somebody into being a Christian. You can't force somebody into Judaism. It's their faith that leads them to believe that. So if you had a school where you're forcing people to partake, isn't that a slap against your moral code of religion?
Like, how would you feel if you were in an area where the majority of people were not Christian and the public school decided to start saying their prayers at the beginning of every class and forcing your kid to participate? It's the same thing.
So that's where, again, I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong, and we'll get off the religious bit. Because there's no winning in religion, folks. There isn't. There really isn't. But Nilok, we're friends. I appreciate the super chat. Free Alberta with a 279 super chat. If you want the old system, you're part of the system.
Ooh, can I do that part now?
Go ahead. Take it away. I could feel it coming. You take that one away. Go ahead.
So, I mean, I had to laugh at Derek's video from the other day where he ranted against the system and the politics and whatever, because like I said, I am a libertarian. I have no faith in any politician. And that's something I think people need to understand. Nobody in power is coming to save you. Not Donald Trump, not Pierre Poilievre, not Danielle Smith. Even if they went into politics with the greatest of intentions, they're still stuck in the system that we've had for the last 200 and 300 years. And the boulder has crested the hill on the entrenchment of that system. I think it did it in the 70s. Now you can alter how that boulder is moving down the hill a little bit by changing the politician in charge, but the boulder is still moving in the same direction, and that direction is the power and authority of the state. And as a person who believes that personal liberty and property rights are the absolute foundation of everything, the state having so much control and direct influence on our day-to-day lives is a big issue for me. And then, so we're going to go back into, so what do? Become ungovernable. Plant your garden, go fishing, go hunting, fill your freezer without going to the grocery store, talk to your neighbors, be friends with the people around you in your community. And because honestly, at the end of the day, voting isn't going to solve this. Protesting isn't going to solve this, because the entrenched system it's too big. It is too big.
I've often compared it to the new mafia, the new mob, because everything is designed for them to win and for us to lose. Their corruption is on full display, and yet nothing gets done about it. Look, I've been on this platform for a couple of years now, especially with this channel doing politics. I mean, I've been on YouTube for almost 20 years, but I didn't start making content until a few years ago. And in that time, anytime I've brought up, look what Justin Trudeau's doing, look what Mark Carney's doing, look at Jagmeet Singh. Can you guys believe this is happening? Something needs to be done. The number one comment every single time, nothing's going to happen. Nothing will get done. No one's going to do anything. The biggest problem of all, when we look at this corrupt government, is that when you take in, for example, what's going on with Nancy Pelosi and the insider trading in the United States, that's on full display right now. She could go to jail. I hope she does. But in Canada, we have what's called parliamentary privilege, meaning you can break the law, you can do all these things, but if you did it while you were in Parliament, well, technically nothing happens to you. At least that's what we're seeing. Things should happen. You should be able to go to jail. That should be a possibility. Yet they use it as an excuse to say, well, we don't really have to discuss it or talk about it. We don't have to provide documents about it. And we don't really have to explain ourselves because of parliamentary privilege. Take, for example, what is going on with Mark Carney. Mark Carney launches Build Canada Homes with an initial $13 billion to build 4,000 housing units on federal land. $13 billion and 4,000 homes equals $3.25 million per home. These are affordable homes, folks. And guess who's building those homes? Brookfield. The company that Mark Carney says, well, I have a blind trust, you see. It's not a conflict of interest because I'm not in charge of those stocks. I'm just in charge of who gets those contracts. Do you think they actually looked at any other company to take on those contracts? Do you think they actually vetted any other possible contractors to build these homes? Absolutely not.
Keep in mind, this is $3.25 million per home, and these aren't like big houses. Like, these are modular, low-income housing that they're putting on government land.
Like $300,000 homes. Like,
if that,
not 3.25 million. All that money, folks, is your tax dollars going into their pockets. And what's funny is that Mark Carney comes out and announces it. And Mark Carney says, hey, guess what, folks? This is what we're doing. I have to be clear. Here's what we're going to put forward. And everybody goes, oh, elbows up. Yay. Oh, golf clap. It's so fantastic. And then other people look at it like us and say, what in the Sam hell's going on here? Pierre Poilievre comes out.
Was they needed 40,000 houses a year for the next 10 years to even start to keep up. And he's patting himself on the back for building 4,000 at 10 times the cost they should be.
Yeah, not going to happen. Nilok, another $5 super chat. Thank you so much. You're being so generous tonight. History tells us you have to take freedom. There isn't books written with the negotiated freedom of nations. Eventually, governments become too corrupted. We do. Unfortunately, I can't call for that freedom on this channel because it's inciting violence. But I agree with you. Thank you for the super chat. Bradley, $2 super chat. Brookfield shouldn't be allowed to do it. No, it's conflict of interest. It's as soon as he becomes prime minister, there should be a clause. It doesn't matter if you have a blind trust or not. You've got people involved with Brookfield. Brookfield is not allowed. They're exempt from contracts in Canada.
And this is
he wouldn't be prime minister.
Going on for, I mean, as far back as I can even remember. It's just a running joke, even from my parents' age. They're like, politicians, they're all corrupt, rah, rah. And they don't even hide it anymore. They don't even have to, because nothing. But
that's where I say they're like the mob. They're like the mob. They're out there doing it, saying, what are you going to do about it? And that's where I said I've lost faith. One of the things I was getting to there was that, Mark Carney will make this announcement, and then Pierre Poilievre comes out and goes, well, you see, this is why we're going to put forward a conservative motion to do this first and put that last, and here's my new slogan, and isn't this wonderful? And everybody goes, oh, Pierre, we love you. And guys like the Pleb put out a video and say, oh, look how awesome Pierre is. And people go, yay, Pierre, he can't do any wrong. And I come out and put out a video and say, are you fucking kidding me? And the next thing people say, you're terrible, you hate Pierre. No, but this is the same old carousel we've been riding for the last 4 years. The last 4 years, we're worshiping politicians that are doing nothing. They're playing theater. We criticize Justin Trudeau for playing dress up, but we cheer on our politicians that have no power to change anything, folks. And it's not saying Pierre's a bad person. It's saying when he talks about, the Canada Sovereignty Act, when he talks about all these things he's going to put forward, he can't. He can't put any of it forward. He's crippled. He has to go against the Blocs and the Liberals. He can't do it.
Put it forward all you want, and it looks good. Say, look, see this bill. I wrote this bill. It says everything that all of my fans like. I put it on the table. And then the Conservatives and the Bloc and the NDP look at that bill and go, and throw it out the window. And Pierre knows
it'll be fine.
And Pierre knows that they're going to do that, but he gets to have the good optics of putting it on the table. And now I'm not going to pretend I know his intentions or his wish or what he wants to achieve. It's not a question of him being stronger, though.
That's why I put that up there.
Because he's still in the system. He has to work within the system. So even if you think he is exactly who he says he is and he's going to try and fix everything, he can't. Because not only does he have to get everybody in his own party on board, but he has to get at least half or a quarter of the Liberals and some of the NDP and a bunch of the Bloc to vote with it. And that's historically not happening very well.
It doesn't matter how hard Pierre fights or how tough he gets or if he owns Mark Carney. This is why I was saying earlier, we got to start showing some other content other than look what they did, look what this guy did, look what's happening here. We need to start putting a little bit of positivity into people because it's very depressing, folks. I can't tell you how hard it's been while I was able to do question period up until today, where the whole chat the whole time says, I can't watch this. I can't listen to it anymore. We were counting how many times they talk about people can't afford food. We're going to be the strongest in the G7. We're going to build. Nothing is going to get done. We're going to foot the bill. They're going to be pigs at a trough. They're going to continue flaunting their bureaucratic, illegal policies and their illegal conflicts of interest and scandals in front of us. And we're going to take it. We're going to take it up the tailpipe. And I want to get to Danielle Smith because a lot of people are saying, well, hey, an LNG deal was announced today. Isn't that great? Isn't that fabulous? I'm going to get to that. Don't worry. Wayne with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. ATCO will build the modular homes. Brookfield, major stockholder, no mention of new pipeline, but there's a 200-kilometer pipeline from Piers to Fort Saskatchewan. Guess who's? ATCO. Doesn't need to heat it. Doesn't want the heat of announcing it. It's more than that. Thank you so much for the super chat. Another one as well. Let's talk about what people think is a generational budget. I mean, look, I got to shift over to Danielle because we're going way over time with this. But the problem that I have with the federal government is the same problem I have with Danielle Smith. And people said to me yesterday, I sure hope you walk back those comments you made about Danielle and not giving her your vote anymore. No. Until she shows me otherwise, she's lost my vote. It doesn't mean I won't vote for Danielle. It means she's going to have to do her job at some point if she wants me to come back. She's going to have to do more than talk out both sides of her mouth. She has stirred up a massive problem in Alberta by coming out and saying, oh, you know, I put this 6-month stipulation on Mark Carney or whoever was going to be prime minister to say, we got to get rid of the tanker ban. We got to get rid of C-69. We got to be able to get rid of the emissions cap. We got to be able to farm our natural resources, trillions of dollars under the ground, folks. Remember that video she put out? And then Mark Carney comes to Edmonton, of all places, to announce his fast track projects and says, Alberta doesn't get jack shit. And Danielle goes, okay. And she waltzes out a few hours later. Yep. She'll extend it till November because she's had good talks with Mark Carney. Are you kidding me? He's at your table. He's in your home telling you you're not getting anything. And you say, I'm going to extend it. He's a nice guy. Things are looking great with us. I'm for a unified Canada while you have trillions in the ground. Here's the big problem, folks, and here's what nobody's looking at. Because people are going to think I'm dumping on Danielle. Do you know what's actually happened here? The biggest mistake that was made was a referendum on separation was not called sooner. Danielle Smith has dragged us along while oil and crude have gone into the toilet. You remember Donald Trump saying, drill, baby, drill? They're overstocking the supply. Our oil right now is worthless. Danielle's sitting at the table and her royal flush has turned into a pair of threes. She has nothing to negotiate with. That's why she's doing these deals with Mark Carney. That's why she's extending things, because she doesn't have anything to play at the table anymore. She shit the bed. She threatened when she should have been taking action. People in Alberta were ready to go. We were ready to sign and get out of here. Instead, let's put through petitions. Let's put through signatures. Ask your people what they want. Listen to your people. Oil is in the toilet. It's not going anywhere. And I hate to break it to you, people who say today, well, they announced an LNG project into BC. That deal was 90% complete in the negotiation phase before Mark Carney was prime minister. That deal was going to happen with or without him. And that deal, ladies and gentlemen, is one out of hundreds that Alberta had on the table. Hundreds. Saskatchewan, hundreds of deals that aren't going through. They can't get their products out of the ground. They can't get them to market. They can't refine their product and sell it for a profit. Alberta would take a loss on its oil right now if it were to pull it out of the ground and sell it to the United States just to pay more to get it back. And everybody wants to sit and say, oh, you hate Danielle. No, I think she screwed us. She had a golden opportunity. That while Donald Trump said, drill, baby, drill, she said, let's lock in a deal. Let's get our oil out of here. Hey, you know what, Mark Carney? You don't have any interest in Alberta, and I'm going to let the people decide. I'm not calling the referendum. The people of Alberta have. We have a national unity crisis. That's what should have happened day one. And instead, our oil went in the toilet, and now we're at the mercy of the federal government, and we're going to be paying through the nose forever, folks. You're going to watch as independence takes a shit nosedive into the road. And I don't like saying that because I was all for it, and I am still all for it, and I really hope somebody turns it around. But I don't think it's going to be Danielle. And I am mad. I think you should all be mad. Anybody who supported Danielle Smith should be livid right now. You should go to the AGM. You should approach the premier. You should approach your constituents and ask them what gave them the right to shit the bed when they knew what Albertans wanted. Why they're folding to Mark Carney, why they allowed things to get this bad instead of taking action. Accountability, folks. You can like a politician all you like. You can wish that they bring you a golden era of prosperity and riches and, everything beyond your wildest dreams. But when they don't do their job, folks, when they screw up, you have to ask for accountability. Plain and simple.
And also keep in mind that other countries across the world, the US, China, Russia, they're all 10 years ahead on building infrastructure to get their resources out and get them places and make money off of them. They've been doing it for a long time already, the LNG and everything. And, with the goings on with Russia and Ukraine, there's the sanctions and stuff. And Russia's already found a way around a lot of that and built a whole nother fleet. They're getting shit done, and we can't even build one thing.
Couple I got to get to here. Free Alberta 279 super chat. Take away our freedom is daddy. I'm not sure what that means, but thank you for the 279 super chat. Ace of Based, $5 super chat. You don't have any idea of an actionable plan, just a vague, he should do this. Considering you profit off exciting media, it's a bad look. I'm not sure what that means either. I mean, if you've got a better plan, Ace of Based, I would encourage you to say what should happen, realistically. Because I always love it when people say, "Oh, I know what should happen. They should just separate right now." Well, you can't. There's laws. There's procedures. Tell me your plan. I'm not being a jerk when I say that. I'm interested. Jancor, 11-month being a membership. Thank you so much. Our darn country is full of riches.
It is.
It is. They just don't want to do anything with it. The problem with the UCP from Nilok becoming a member for half a year. Thank you so much. Problem with the UCP is that it's made up of the Alberta Conservative parties that included PCs, progressives, and are warmed through the team as well. It's the old boys. Guys, I really hate sounding like negative. I really hate it when I have to read comments when people say, "Hey, Derek, you really went overboard. It was hard to watch." But aren't you feeling the same? Aren't you guys tired of this? Aren't you sick and tired of going around the same old carousel over and over and over again? Being told, "Don't worry, better days are coming," and they don't. Being told that we've got a handle on this, we're going to make sure everything's good for our people, we care about our constituents, and they don't. Pierre couldn't even pronounce his riding in the House of Commons on Monday. And while some people go, "It was just a trip," it's because they don't care. I was talking today on live stream about how I know YouTubers who told me Pierre called them to thank them for putting out their videos during the election for their support. And he didn't know anything about their channels. And they were insulted. Because they're sitting there saying, "Why is he calling and thanking me? He doesn't even know who I am." If you were, think about that, folks. You ever see that scene from National Lampoon's Christmas where the boss comes in and goes, "Hey, Don, how you doing?" And he's like, "That's Clark, sir." And he just completely snubs him and walks away. Like, that's what happened to those YouTubers. Pierre called them to thank them and didn't even have a clue as to who they were. He was just doing what he was told.
Running down the list, some staffer handed him.
Yeah. Yeah, because they got to keep up their optics. They got to keep their cheerleaders in line. I like Pierre. I can't say it enough. I like him as a person. I've been very grateful to have many conversations with him. Not many, but a couple. And any of them that I did, I enjoyed them. And I think he's a good person. But there's a difference between personal Pierre and politician Pierre. And it's not a matter that Pierre's crap in the bed or he's not doing his job. The problem is that he can't do his job. He's unable to do his job. He's outnumbered. So we just have to sit back and allow the government to walk all over us for the next 4 years and smile and smirk. Did you see Mark Carney laughing in the House of Commons today when he had to talk about his deficit? And he says, oh, geez, we're going to get that under control, guys. We're going to be the most powerful in the G7. You think it's funny? Of course he thinks it's funny. He just made, what was it here? $13 billion off of us. He doesn't care about a deficit. We just lined his pockets.
I mean, deals aside, none of the people in the House or, the Prime Minister ever have to suffer the consequences of the economy that us normal people do. Like, they have provided housing. They have really high salaries that are unaffected by inflation or, whatever else is happening, no matter what happens. And they only work 70 days a year. So no matter what happens, they still get to go home.
Hang on. Paniner's asking, hey, Fringe, why do you and Mr. Sunshine have beef with each other? We don't. I don't. Does he have beef with me? I don't have beef with him. I don't understand what that's about. No, look, guys, I've told you, I'm not getting involved in that drama stuff anymore. I don't have a problem. Look, despite what people think, anybody in this world, it doesn't matter what somebody's doing in their lives. If you go to their house and look for skeletons in their closet or flip a mattress over, you might find dirty things about everybody. But I don't have beef with anybody on this platform. I don't. I don't pick fights with anybody anymore. I don't know. Yeah. See, John St. Jasper's doing his own thing. I wish him all the best. I don't have a problem with him. It's okay. So I did see Ace of Base put in another super chat. We got to get to that. $10 super chat. Conservatives should not be playing into the liberal trap. They should be focusing on the people. I agree on focusing on constituents. They should be walking out of the house when the liberals mock them. So I agree with that. Thank you for that reply. I actually agree with that. He adds to it as well. They're too focused on pretending to be tame. They should start being more aggressive differently, less yelling and more silent action. Focus on podcasters, people's everyday problems, real problems. So I'm gonna actually chime on top of that because I agree with you 100%. In fact, I know some people can't take the middle of their day out to come to the question period live stream today, but I even said in there, I'd like to see Pierre out in a parking lot at a grocery store, not doing a press conference, not there for any other reason. Don't even take a camera. Go there and just ask people, how much did you pay for those groceries that are in your cart? What's your lifestyle like? How much is in your bank account? Like, people don't have to tell him because it's not their business, but do you get what I'm saying? They have to show that at some point they care about Canadians. And I'll give you another example. And please don't think that I'm holding in salty behavior because of this. It really is telling to how politicians see the world. Dane Lloyd is the MP for my region in Parkland County. And when I first moved to Spruce Grove, one of my amazing viewers asked me to come out and meet Dane Lloyd and said he wants to meet with you. He wants to talk to you about the election, everything else. And I said, sure, of course, I will happily lend my time to the Conservative Party. I wanted Pierre to win the election. I went to Dane Lloyd's office, took copies of our books, went there all ready to meet him and chat, and excited to meet Dane Lloyd. I like Dane's work in the House of Commons. I've seen what he's done in the past. And I went into his office and he had no clue, just like Pierre with those other YouTubers, who the hell I was. People just told him he's a YouTuber. He has a strong following. And he says, well, bring him in. He didn't look at my channel. He had no idea what I did on YouTube. He didn't even know I was on YouTube. He knew about my books.
Which are great books, by the way.
They're great books. They're wonderful books, folks. You should go get them, by the way, on Amazon. But it was very insulting. In fact, I stood there and just kind of gave the old, yep. Every time he talked, I gave him the cold shoulder. Shook his hand. He asked for a photo op. I took a photo with him. I left. I left that office and said, I'm not going to vote for Dane Lloyd ever again. And it's not because he snubbed me. It's because he made it very obvious. We're just numbers to him. He doesn't take the time to get to know his constituents. He doesn't take the time to show any interest in who he's talking to or do his homework.
Especially telling for a politician on the level of your local area, like a small spot. Like, it's one thing if you're the leader of the official opposition, you're in Ottawa, you're in the House, whatever. But if you're a local neighborhood politician, you got to do better.
Well, and it's rural Alberta. So Parkland County is quite large, from my understanding, in terms of how it's spread out. But I'll give you another example. Stephanie Cousy was my MP when I lived in Calgary. I reached out to Stephanie Cousy, and she immediately knew who I was. And she said, I want to come on your show. She came on and we talked about the Arrive scam. She invited me to her office. She asked about my family when we connected on the phone. She wanted to know what got my start and what I was doing, where in Calgary I lived in her riding, what we did for a living, what we think about the current climate of politics. She actually took time to talk to me outside of YouTube. And I was very appreciative of that. And I said, that's somebody that deserves my vote. Again, not because they're licking my butt, but because they give a damn. They're invested.
And that's how it's supposed to be. They are supposed to be representing the people in the area that they are voted to represent. And how can you represent them if you don't even know who they are?
And I'm not saying that these politicians have to know every single person that live in their riding. They're not Santa Claus. Okay. They don't know who's good and who's bad. But what I'm saying is that when they meet these people, because they stand up in the House of Commons every day and they say, hey, I get emails from people that say their groceries are up, their food costs are up, their utilities are up. They can't make ends meet. Did you call them? Did you email them back? Did you thank them for their time? Did you reply to them at all and say, I'm going to take care of it. Hang on. Help is coming. Do you even know what it's like to be in their position? Have you ever thought about it? Because again, these politicians make six-figure salaries. They get a plethora of write-offs and perks. They don't have to pay for gas. They don't have to pay for their cars. They get subsidized for their housing on Parliament Hill. They don't know what it's like to struggle, like the person who goes and gets a second job just to pay for the daycare for the first job. If they don't invest in a connection to their voters, the people will eventually feel faceless. They'll feel like they don't matter. And that's when those parties are really going to struggle. And that's part of the reason the Conservatives don't want Alberta separating. The majority of their seats are in Alberta. The Conservative Party of Canada wouldn't survive without Alberta.
Probably not.
Asa-based $5 super chat. I thought today that maybe they are planning on voting him out in January, and the plan is to make Pierre look bad so a new hero can come in. I'm not sure what the plan is. I'm not sure where they go from here, to be completely honest. And the reason I say that, and it's not to be negative, it's that they always say one thing and do the next. And you always say, well, we heard rumblings and rumors that something was going down over here or something was happening over there. And then you get the complete opposite. So out of speculation, I don't think anybody's getting voted out anytime soon. I don't think the Bloc will run an election because they just had one. They have to take time to pay back the money from running the last election. I think we're in it for the long haul, folks. Dutchy, $139.99 super chat. God, he comes in every stream. Absolutely. Leave a message next time, please. I want to give you a proper shout out. But I definitely appreciate that. Thank you so much. Squishy with a $13.99 super chat. Something I thought of that should be a thing is that no one should be permitted to run a country or a riding until they've lived within the average means of people in that country or riding. I mean, that would be nice, but telling somebody they have to be middle class before they can ride or run, I think that's a weird stipulation. I'll tell you one thing I do think they should have to do, and then I'm going to get to the other super chats. Let me pull up a tweet I put out. Oh my God, that's my bad. I was writing it to wait. This came up the other day. I don't have a problem with MPs who understand that they've had a good life and that they're well off. I don't have an issue with that. I just don't want conflicts of interest. When you look at what happens in the House of Commons, and people are going to say, I knew you were going to bring this up, Fringe. Let's take a look at this. You guys see this video running around? This is the Conservative MP for Edmonton Southeast. He can barely speak English. This is what I don't want in the House of Commons. And it's not because he's Indian. Well, it is a part of it. Because of his heritage, because of where he's from, he hasn't lived in Canada his whole life. Canadians should be the only ones permitted to hold a seat in the House of Commons. If you bring in people from other countries, you're compromised. Your values are compromised. Your laws are compromised. Listen to him talk and just realize this isn't me being racist or me being a bigot. This is reality. Listen to him talk and then listen to what he says at the end because it's alarming.
This will propose that this bill goes to committee for proper review, for proper safeguards to be put in place so that Canadian citizenship is not misused, it's not abused, and it's equally valued by the...
So you see him stopping there? He can't speak a full sentence. He's having a hard time. And let me go back because this is where he gets to the insulting part.
And it's equally valued by the hardworking, non-born Canadians like me, like millions other, so that they also feel appreciated. There should be no two-tier test for immigration.
So he's pandering for immigration for non-born Canadians like me, he says. You shouldn't be in the House of Commons if you're not born in Canada. It's a circus. This is a circus we live in. Can't have a circus without a Carney. Yes, it's trademarked. That book's on its way out, folks. Get ready for it. It's going to be great. Why are we allowing, like when you look at, and again, I've shown the chart before of the World Sikh Organization. You've got Yasraj Halan from the Conservatives, whose father was linked to the head of the World Sikh Organization, Jagmeet Singh, failed woke mayor Jyoti Gondek. There's a whole bunch. There's liberals in there as well. It's not just conservatives, but they're all tied to the World Sikh Organization. Why are they allowed to infiltrate our parliaments and our cities and our provinces? Why, if they're non-born in Canada, are they allowed to have an effect on our politics?
Well, that goes back to the thing I talked about way earlier about demographic shift and how they get voted in.
So Sanctus says, so what do we do? What are we going to do? I honestly don't know.
The plan is the same. It's always the same. It's become independent from the system. Grow a garden. Go hunt a deer. Be physically fit enough that you can run up the hill if you have to. Train with your toys, and make sure you've got food stocked up, supplies. I know I sound like, I'll bring out my Alex Jones again. Don't make me. But it's true. Whether it's our own government, whether it's World War III, whether it be aliens, or whether it be zombies, the plan is always the same.
It's hard. What it's going to take is the same thing that it took in America, and I don't know when that's going to be. You need somebody who's willing to stand outside of the parliamentary system, who's not a politician, somebody, a businessman, somebody who's powerful enough to come in and say, I'm draining all of this. We're getting rid of it. If Pierre went into the House of Commons tomorrow and said, we're going to do electoral reform, we're going to change the way the country is, we're going to balance the Senate seats across the country, he'd be gone. They would make sure of it. They're the head of the party right now. They're the life of the party. They're enjoying all the perks. They don't want to see it go anywhere. He'd be gone. Preston Manning said to me flat out, that's career suicide. Then doesn't that tell you that our system is broken? When we say Canada is broken, I'm not just talking about Mark Carney. I'm not just talking about what Justin Trudeau did. Canada's broken because the fat, sweaty businessmen politicians, the lawyers, the accountants, the career politicians that put us in this position are all responsible for breaking this country. Every single one of them. Ace of Base, $2 super chat. I personally love Pierre. April was tough. It was tough. I went to that rally in Edmonton. We went to, I almost went to the rally in Calgary. The pleb followed him all over the country. He did an amazing job with the coverage. We all were gunning for Pierre. I thought it was a sure thing. It was hard. It was devastatingly hard. I remember sitting with Mrs. Fringe on election night. She actually walked away from the live stream and got quite emotional because she said, what are we going to do? I can't tell you what emotions will run through this house if Naheed Nenshi gets in and Danielle Smith loses her job. All because she screwed around.
Nenshi, there's a disaster.
We lived through him in Calgary. I'm telling you right now, like clockwork, your taxes shoot up. Spend. No accountability, no actual policy, by the way. It's just, we're going to spend and you're going to pay for it. People thought Rachel Notley was bad when she was the head of Alberta with the NDP. Nenshi, you might as well crank it up to 11 and pull the knob out. Like, it's yikes. Nilok with a $5 super chat. Their staffers get them all the info, but much like it's been revealed in the UK, our parliament is scripted. Our system doesn't work. It's optional. So that's part of the thing too, is when we've watched Question Period over the last few days, it feels like a show, doesn't it, folks? It feels scripted. In fact, like I said, today we counted how many times are they mentioning the same thing over and over and over. No change. It's all part of the show. It's going to take citizens, their livelihoods being threatened again, their food being threatened, their ability to provide being threatened, just like the truckers had during the convoy, in order to get people to mobilize. It's going to take something very large to consider people to rise up. But when that happens, folks, I don't know if I want to be a part of that, because it's probably going to get real violent real fast. Nilok with another $2 super chat. The Conservative Party of Canada is just as corrupt if that's their guy. It's the problem is that, again, well, hang on, I want to get Snatch's comment here because he's got to go in. You know, they do that repeatedly, mentioning the same thing so they can get sound bites for each of their districts. Absolutely. But again, that's where we say it's all a show, right? It's all part of the show. We're just watching it. And I'll be honest, there was almost, as much as I enjoy sitting down and talking with people all week long with those live streams, there was a sense of relief when I spoke with a doctor this afternoon. He says, you're going to have to take some stress out of your life. You're putting way too much on yourself. I had a long talk with the wife, and she says, people haven't gotten attached to that half-day show yet. You're going to have to cut that for sure. And I was almost glad, because the negativity was gone. You know what I mean? I'm not saying don't watch Question Period. I'm just saying, with how angry people were getting as that was going on, I think we're starting to see the truth. I think we're starting to open our eyes, because you didn't hear people talking like that a year ago when they were watching Question Period. You didn't hear people saying, why are they repeating the same things over and over? Why do they keep doing this? Why is this like a scripted show? People weren't talking about that. And that's good, folks. That gives me some hope. That tells me that people are waking up, and they're starting to see that even those that they champion, even those that they say are the right guys for the job, and they very well may be, but they're starting to see that they're not as perfect as they once thought they were. And that even when they screw up, we have to talk about reality. We have to ask for accountability. I don't hate Danielle Smith. I don't despise Danielle Smith. But until she shows me she's got the balls to say something or do something, she's lost my vote. She needs to earn my vote. She should have to earn all of your votes, not guarantee them. We have to put that pressure on them, or they're never going to change, folks. We've really run the gambit tonight. We've been all over the place. I know it probably came off as a negative stream, folks. I really don't want it to be negative. This is good stuff to talk about. This is positive. Because when we're all together like this and we all get on the same foot, somebody was saying earlier, so what do? Hey, we all talk like this. We all get on the same plan. We all have to get on board. We're no longer going to criticize people when they're calling out these politicians. We're not going to sit there and say, but I like them. Like them all you like. But demand better. That's how you're going to get to keep that politician. And I want you to think about that, especially for the people who got mad that I mentioned Danielle Smith. If I didn't say anything about Danielle's behavior, if I just said, well, I'll let it go because I like her, she'd just keep doing it.
Pull up based super chat.
She'd just keep going ahead with it. But if I call her out and if I say, hey, Danny, you're losing my support here. You're losing a lot of support. In fact, a lot of people in that comment section, when I said it, all said the same thing. I don't trust her anymore. I'm not working with her anymore. Guess what, folks? That's how you get change. Somebody's going to go into her office, not because of this channel, but if that continues across Alberta, people are going to go into her office. The people who watch her campaigns, the people who analyze everything, and they're going to say, you're losing a lot of ground here. You're losing your votes. What? Why? Well, because you sided with Mark Carney. Okay, well, then we either need to change pace or we lose our jobs. That's how you get change, folks. Ace of Base, $10 super chat. Look inward. Have they demoralized you? Be spiritual. Take care of your health. Focus on the family. Challenge your beliefs. Educate yourself. Fear and silence is why we lost. Wholeheartedly. God, we need to get Ace of Based on this channel for a stream. He's got some good points here.
Like, and that's I think kind of what I said earlier. Like, we can talk about this. We can have these conversations. We can say you have to vote and you have to participate in the system. But at the end of the day, the best thing you can do is keep yourself and your family healthy. Talk to your neighbors, form communities, and just live. Touch grass, as they say.
Yeah. Ace of Base came into it. The second half of it is a two-way street. They stand up for us, and we need to show support for them. Don't be scared. Support the Conservatives unapologetically. Couldn't have said it better myself.
But absolutely not without question.
Not without questions. And again, Carney has a very good point here. Thank you for your super chat as well. Ace of Base, thank you for your super chats. You've been fantastic. I really like your talking points. Everybody give a thumbs up there for Ace of Base. That's the kind of dialect we need. That's the talk we need. Carney, $5 super chat. I think Smith has a plan. We just need to wait. I hope. See, look, I'll wait, but I've been waiting is the problem. I've been waiting since April when she said 6 months or you're going to have a unity crisis. And I guess for me, the behavior I saw, the statement that she made has told me, look, I'm not turning my back on Danielle completely. I'm just saying that my vote no longer is guaranteed unless I start seeing some action. So I shouldn't say she lost my vote. It's that my vote isn't a guarantee. I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to not vote for Danielle Smith, or I'm going to vote for her just because I don't want Naheed Nenshi, and then she can just carry on doing the same old shit she always does. I'm going to tell her flat out, it's not that I'll vote for Nenshi or that I'll vote for somebody else. I just won't vote because there will be nobody worth voting for is the problem. My vote is not guaranteed. John Cooper, the $20 super chat. Speaking of being Canadian, what about Tim Hodgson and his dual citizenship? He had to take an oath of allegiance to the United States to become a neutralized citizen. I don't know a lot about Tim Hodgson and that. Matt, do you have anything on that? Do you?
I don't even know who that is, to be honest. Yeah, we'll talk.
I'm sorry, John. John, you know what? Look, I don't want your $20 super chat to go to waste. Let me look into that. I apologize if Tim Hodgson's a big deal and maybe I don't know about it. I'll apologize in advance. Or maybe I've heard of him. It's just drawing a blank.
We can't keep track of it all, guys. We try.
Yeah.
There's too much.
Dutchie with a $7 super chat. Waiting is over. The unity crisis is a reality. It's been a reality for a while. Where is it here? Tim Hodgson is Carney's best friend in Brooklyn. Oh, see, as soon as somebody, yes. So let me get back to the question. What was the question that he asked about it? He had to take a dual citizen. So it's not about his allegiance to Canada or the United States. That's about profits. And even Mark Carney said that in his interviews. Profits push policy. These guys don't care about how many passports they hold. They don't care what countries they live in. They don't have allegiance to anybody but their bank accounts. That's it. That's their allegiance. Them and their bottom line. I think it's shameful. I don't think it should be permitted. I think if you're born in Canada, you should carry a Canadian passport. The only way you should be able to change your passport, like for my father, for example, my father traveled on a British passport forever. He moved to Canada in the 70s, married my mother, and he didn't get his Canadian passport until the early 2000s because he'd lived here long enough. He had his family here. He stayed, but his allegiance was always to Scotland because that's his country. That's where he came from. That's where he was born. That's the flag he carries. But he loves Canada. He loves everything that this country has given him in terms of opportunities. He felt that it was time for him to change his passport. I think if you marry into somebody who lives in that country, you should have the right to get a passport in that country. I agree with those things. But these guys like Mark Carney who have multiple passports across the world, absolutely not. I don't agree with that.
You remember the time your dad moved here too? We were all still part of the British Empire, the Commonwealth. So
Yeah,
it was travel was a lot more simple.
A lot more than it is. On that note, folks, we've actually gone way over time on tonight's stream. I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody who came out tonight. Again, I apologize if you're watching this later, if you didn't get your notifications. Again, YouTube really hammered down on notifications and saying, well, we only do 3 a day, but then they pulled our videos today. So those notifications went out the window. So I'll try and do some safer content for tomorrow, I guess. Again, just a reminder for everybody, no more question period as for now. I might start that up down the road again, but again, there was a scare. I barely made it in time for stream. So my apologies. But some health things are going to have to come. No, it's not because I'm fat. I can already see people. God, I get all these messages. Why don't you go on a diet and sell all your stuff? And why don't you try and do things better? It's not my weight. I've been taking a medication for the last 10 years and it's starting to run its toll on my body by the sounds of it. So some things are going to have to change. Everything's going to be fine. I thank everybody for their concerns, but join me live Friday. I almost said Unhinged Fringe. This is Unhinged Fringe. Join me Friday for Friday Night Fringe. It's going to be a little more positive. There's some Canadian news to get into for tomorrow. I'm hoping you guys will join me for that. I want to thank Matt for coming out. I want to thank everybody who super chatted tonight, got a membership, gave their 2 cents. Everybody who hung out here in the stream, who hit the subscribe button, who's new to our community. Again, 10,000 subs in a week. You guys are on fire. That's awesome. Oh my God, that's awesome. You guys are the best. Have yourselves a great rest of your week. Try and stay positive, folks. Educate yourselves. Question everything. Get involved.
That is basically the overall message for tonight. Get involved.
Absolutely.
Do life. There's some nice positive. We won't talk about the chemicals in the water that are turning the frogs gay.
There you go. You guys are wonderful. Have yourselves a wonderful night. I'll catch you on Fridays, guys. From Matt and myself, have a good one, folks. Take it easy. Look after each other.